Welcome to Old Parrock, a cameo layout in 00 gauge. This layout was built as an entry in the Model Railway Journal cameo competition. It took about 2.5 years to make. Unfortunately, I got a bit carried away with it and I missed the judging by a year. The railway depicts a fictitious light railway running along the Upper Medway Valley in northeast Sussex. It approximately follows the route of the old East Grinstead to Tunbridge Wells line. It's set in the late 1920s to early 1930s. To put this scene in context, around this time, a couple of miles up the road, A.A. Milne would have been finishing writing The House at Pooh Corner. As you probably realised by now, the layout plan is pretty simple, just a reversing loop and a siding. My real interest is in building the scene. The layout is 4 feet 3 inches long by 1 foot 6 deep, with a 2 foot fiddle yard on one end and a very short shunting extension on the other end. The inspiration for Old Parrock came from this photograph of a mill at Tablehurst Farm, which existed from about 1750 to the late 1920s, early 1930s. This is the mill that I finally built. I wanted to make it in a similar way to Pendon and was very inspired by Chris Pilton's book on cottage modelling for Pendon. So I made a plan and painted the bricks and the stones by hand, and eventually made it into a 3-dimensional model. The sides of the mill wheel were a ratio kit, which I then built the rest myself. The sluice gates were made from the ubiquitous coffee stirrers. The mill drain passes through a culvert under the railway and reappears at the front of the layout. Taking another view of the mill from 1906, you can see that the miller's cottage is there in the upper left. This still exists. This contemporary photograph shows the cottage as it is today and the site of the old mill. The end of the cottage is quite interesting, and I wanted to reproduce that in my model. Once again, the cottage was built by creating a net, then painting the brickwork before folding it up and finishing it off with the roof, windows and all the other extras. To add interest, I put my cottage on the site of an old trade route, which crosses the railway and actually becomes the station road. I also made a Bow Bells sign. These were on an old toll road from the 1750s, which is now the A22, and mine shows 35 miles from London. The fiddle yard was made by a friend of mine, Mel Leggett, who is not a railway modeller and didn't even know what a fiddle yard is. He is, however, practical and interested in solving problems. The turntable automatically changes which track has the feed and the polarity. And alignment is actually achieved by the use of magnets, which are 100% efficient. It works really well. The coal yard is actually a model of an old Brighton Railway goods lock-up. These were built for about £50 each from the 1880s onwards and were used in small goods yards. At Old Parrock, mine is rented by the local coal merchant. The coal sacks were made with milliput and the scales and the weights are made of plasticard. The station building is typical of those on the Kent and East Sussex Railway, but my version is dramatically cut down in size. There's only a gents' loo, and the flushing system is fed by the station building guttering. It was said that in hot summers, even the flies deserted the urinal. The station on Old Parrock was an afterthought, which is why it's actually the wrong way round and you can't see the front. So I've taken some pictures to show the front. And I always imagine this lady is on her way to Three Bridges to catch the new electric service up to London, where she'll go shopping at Harvey Nichols or some of the other Knightsbridge shops. These two musicians are off to Brighton to play for a dance at the Regent's Dance Hall. The lady may look rather dull, but she's actually a red-hot jazz guitarist. The signal cabin is a copy of one that used to be at Robertsbridge. A more comprehensive description of the layout is on the Western Thunder forum in the Cameo competition section. I'd like to say thank you to the crowd on there too for their positive encouragement over the time that I was building the layout. Special thanks must go to my model railway friend of many years, Richard Hurd, for support and encouragement well beyond the call of duty. Thanks, Richard.